Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a genuinely fascinating source text. It's a highly structured sermon that takes a deep dive into the famous biblical narrative of the wedding at Cana. Now, running out of wine at a wedding, that is a timeless, universally understood disaster. But what makes this text so absolutely compelling is how it takes that 2,000-year-old party foul and transforms it into this profound, overarching metaphor for the human condition. We're going to break down the structure of this message, we'll look at the specific arguments it makes about where true joy actually comes from, and we'll explore the incredibly surprising modern applications it draws from some ancient stone water jars.
So let's jump right in. The source text kicks things off by posing a massive philosophical problem right in its introduction. Can we truly manufacture our own joy? The sermon points out a very common human assumption, this idea that if we just acquire more things, or if we can just arrange our environment perfectly, we can basically build our own happiness from scratch. We truly think joy is something we can manufacture. But, as the text strongly argues, as we navigate through life, we eventually hit a brick wall and realize this is a total illusion.
Here is our roadmap for the explainer today. 1. The illusion of joy. 2. Why we invite Jesus. 3. Miracle of mercy and obedience. 4. Symbol of empty stone jars. 5. 3 reactions to miracles. And finally, 6. Send your invitation today. We begin with Section 1, the illusion of joy.
The text lays out an opening argument about our mistaken belief in self-made happiness, stating that joy experienced without God simply does not last. The sermon does this beautiful thing where it maps the physical disaster of the wine running out at the party directly onto the inevitable end of environment-based worldly joy. Just like the wine at that banquet eventually dried up, the text argues that joy derived purely from the world has a strict expiration date. Why? Well, according to the source, humans were originally designed to experience true joy only when they are with God. So whether it's the simple pleasure of eating a quiet meal or the happiness of smiling at a friend, the ultimate source of that joy isn't the environment itself, it's the Creator.
Moving right along to Section 2, why we invite Jesus. Here, the sermon shifts from the problem to the solution, offering a highly organized theological answer for our empty joy. It frames this all around the concept of an invitation. And it's quick to note, this isn't just about a literal wedding invitation, it's a metaphor for inviting the divine into the everyday moments of our lives. To make its case, the text uses the rule of 3, cleanly laying out 3 distinct reasons to extend this invitation. First, his absolute humility. Second, his divine mercy. And third, the fact that he is the creator of joy.
Let's unpack that first point. The text argues that the creator of the universe is characterized by absolute, extreme humility. It points out that Jesus came to earth in a lowly manger, right? Not a grand palace. And it's exactly because of this humility that he willingly accepted an invitation to a simple, totally obscure country wedding in Cana. The crucial takeaway this sermon presents here is that divinity does not discriminate based on wealth or social status. Whether a house is rich or poor, the response comes to anyone who extends a sincere invitation, which the text explicitly defines as prayer.
Which brings us to Section 3, miracle of mercy and obedience.
Okay, this part is fascinating. We're looking at the specific mechanics of the miracle, highlighting that second core reason, divine mercy. In the narrative, Mary points out that the wine is gone, and Jesus replies that his time has not yet come, which the text explains is a reference to his ultimate work on the cross. But then, the text uses this highly relatable modern metaphor. It likens Jesus' response to a cash advance. Just like you might get an advance on your paycheck, the sermon argues that because Mary believed in his divine mercy, Jesus essentially pulled the future grace of the cross forward into that present moment. He gave her a cash advance on grace. And because of this profound mercy, Mary boldly told the servants to obey whatever Jesus said.
Next up, Section 4, symbol of empty stone jars. The sermon now shifts its focus entirely to the physical objects in the story, specifically the empty stone jars used for ceremonial washing, and gives them this massive metaphorical weight. It frames these completely empty jars as a symbol of a modern society where morality has collapsed and honestly where people feel absolutely no shame about it. It describes a world where keeping basic moral rules without getting any sort of reward for it just feels like a stressful, exhausting burden. Have you ever felt that way? The text asks, in such a burnt-out society, what happens if we still choose to do moral good? The answer it provides is that obedience in the face of an empty culture is exactly what results in the miracle of plain water turning into the finest wine.
Entering the falling action of the story, we hit Section 5, 3 reactions to miracles.
The text categorizes the people present at the wedding to prompt some serious self-reflection. It asks the audience to look at 3 distinct historical reactions and identify which one mirrors their own life. First, you have the servants. They obeyed during a crisis, did the heavy lifting, and directly experienced the miracle. Second, the banquet master. He tasted the amazing wine and loved the benefit, but he was completely ignorant of its source, just praising the groom instead. And finally, the disciples. They witnessed the sign, they believed, and they walked with Jesus, securing eternal joy simply because they accompanied him in the first place. So, which one are you?
And finally, Section 6. Send your invitation today.
Let's see how all of this builds into the sermon's practical call to action. The text argues that believers must actively share this joy with the world. It uses the classic metaphor of being salt and light. Basically, when society looks at you and wonders why on earth you are so joyful despite your circumstances, the required response is to confess that you didn't manufacture it yourself. The instruction is to tell people that Jesus took your plain, tasteless, water-like life and miraculously transformed it into fine wine.
The whole argument hinges on this crucial point, quoting Hebrews 13:8, that the exact same transformative power present at that ancient wedding is guaranteed to be available right now, today. The joy that the world offers is eventually going to scrape the bottom of the barrel, for sure. But the text assures the listener that the joy offered through this divine invitation is an eternal spring that literally never dries up.
We leave you with this final, provocative thought, derived directly from the sermon's concluding metaphor. The text invites you to reflect on your own days, the happy ones, the perfectly ordinary ones, and the really hard ones. It poses a stark, unavoidable choice. Will you leave your life as plain, tasteless water? Or will you send out the invitation to experience the transformation into fine wine? Thank you so much for joining us as we unpack this fascinating explainer today.